It's probably time we had a little chat about mixing hempcrete.
Where did I leave my cup? Ah. That's a coincidence, look. Episode 23. Mixing hempcrete in a Belle mixer. Or is it a coincidence?
So, if you want to mix a lot of hempcrete, you can use a forced action mixer, which is a big horizontal pan with a paddle in it that pushes the material around. But if you're only doing a small structure like this, it's possible to mix the hempcrete using a Belle mixer, although you have got to sort of meet the Belle mixer halfway because it's not really designed for mixing hempcrete.
There are three issues when it comes to mixing a Belle mixer. The first is that, unlike the big horizontal forced action mixers, it's quite hard to pour a bucket of lime into the front of a mixer which is angled like this without making a big cloud of lime dust, which is obviously quite dangerous and unpleasant. The second is that these steel paddles inside the drum are quite close to the front of the drum, so a mass of unmixed hempcrete tends to form at the back of the drum. And the third is that you've got to be able to pour it out into these big trugs to carry it to the building. So what I've done to overcome these is build a little platform for the mixer to sit on so that I can move it around. If I want to tip the drum upwards to pour the lime in, then I just tilt it back like this. If I want to tilt the drum forward slightly so that the mix is getting turned over properly by those steel paddles, then I just put it up on a brick like this. And when it comes to emptying the mixer, it's already at the right height for filling this trug.
So the process goes something like this.
First of all, check your proportions. I'm using a fixer called Thermo at proportions of 3:1:1 of shiv to fixer to water.
Check the proportions with the supplier because each fixer is different. And also, sometimes you need to use a different amount depending on what kind of mixer you're using. So in this case, I think the mix is going to be slightly more fixer heavy because I'm using a Belle mixer rather than a forced action mixer.
Next, get your measurements together. Lay it out in numbers of whole buckets so that you don't have to mark the buckets and they're quick and easy to fill. So that's 3 buckets of hemp shiv, 1 bucket of water and 1 bucket of lime. Don't mix up wet with dry. So the shiv buckets are dry, the water's wet, and the lime bucket is dry, and that will stop the shiv or the lime sticking to the side of the bucket. Remember your PPE.
Don't be a twat about it, put it on.
Me?
Yes, you.
Okay. And remember to have your eye wash first aid kit handy. So you've got distilled water in case this happens to you. Ow. Then you take a few bales of hemp shiv and empty them into a bulk sack so it's easy to fill the buckets. Once you've got all your materials measured out, then you're ready to go.
If it's the first mix, always wet the drum with some unmeasured out water and tip it out again so that the first load of lime doesn't stick to the sides. First of all, tip in the water. If it's not the first mix, then you can use the water to wash the previous mix off the sides of the drum. Next, add the lime and then mix it up until it forms a slurry. I found it helpful to pour it in a steady stream. Then you add the first 2 buckets of hemp shiv and give it a mix.
It's a good idea to tip the machine forwards now so that those paddles in the drum are really working.
At this point, because there's still a third of the hemp shiv to be added, the mix is still quite liquid, so the action of the mixer can break up any lumps of shiv or lime and make a nice homogeneous paste. Once that's done, you shake in the rest of the hemp shiv and give it a mix. Now, if you were using a forced action mixer, any hemp shiv or lime that was stuck to the inside of the drum would be scraped off by that paddle as it went round. But with a Belle mixer you don't have that, so you've got to use your arm instead. This is another place where you have to meet the mixer halfway. So what you do is stop the machine, use your hand to scrape any mix off the upper side of the drum, and pull any unmixed hempcrete forwards from the back. Then turn it through 180 degrees. Do the same thing for the other half of the drum. And then continue till the end of the mix. It's important not to over-mix at this point or the hempcrete will start to ball up. It's a bit of a faff, but once you get into a rhythm of it, it's okay. Give it one final mix to homogenise anything that you've scraped off with your hand, and you're done. The whole process should take between 5 and 10 minutes. Some people actually set up 2 Belle mixers running simultaneously, but I haven't really got space to do that. You empty the hempcrete out into the trugs. Roughly clean the inside of the drum with your hand and then start the process over again. And then start the process over again. And then start the process over again. And then repeat that 60 or 80 times and you have an extension.
Here's the final tally of hempcrete mixes. It took 85 mixes to make the walls.
What's actually happening when you mix hempcrete is that the fixer and the hemp shiv are in competition for the water, so it's important that you get the amount of water absolutely right. If there's too much water, then the hempcrete will take a long time to dry and the building will take longer to complete because you won't be able to put finishes on that wall. If there's not enough water, then the hempcrete fixer might not be able to take its hydraulic set and so the wall might be weak and crumble. There's a little test called a snowball test where you make a ball of the hempcrete and then push your finger into it and it should split. If it squidges then it's too wet and if it crumbles then it's too dry. If you do need to alter the ratios because it's a very wet or a very hot day, then you alter the amount of water but you leave the ratio of hemp shiv to fixer the same. Otherwise the wall could become overfixed or too weak. And that's about it, I think. Yeah, I think that's about it. Visit the Patreon page with links in the description box. Like and subscribe. Catch you next time. Bye then.